Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our TGIF, the Friday and Product Owner episode, this week with Eliza Gregory. Hi Eliza, welcome back.
Hi Vasco, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Friday's Product Owner episode, we'll talk about what great product owners do in a minute, but first, perhaps even more interesting, the antipattern. So Eliza, share with us what might have been potentially the worst product owner antipattern you've witnessed in your career.
Ooh, so I had a product owner in the States who was new to the company. I'll give some benefit of the doubt. They were new to the company. I had already been there about 10 years. So I felt like an old veteran at that time. But there were some behavioral traits within this PO that they weren't really in the best interest of the team. So one of the things that this individual would do is often say how that they were a catalyst for change and they were fully supporting the change. We were going through an agile transformation within the company. And they would keep saying that, but then in meetings, they would constantly argue against the change and start fighting for the status quo. And it was like, what are you doing? Like, are you just confused because you're new? So I wasn't, always quite sure how to handle it because I just thought maybe he just doesn't know what exactly we're changing. Maybe he doesn't comprehend it. But there were other behavioral traits that stacked on top of this that were equally unhelpful. They often spoke over the team. They interrupted the team when a developer was speaking to insert their opinion. And in one situation, they asked me to stay after, and after all the developers left the daily. And they said to me, I expect more command and control from you. And I thought, first of all, I don't work for you, so I don't know where this is coming from. But my immediate response was, that's not agile. And they were sort of stunned, like they didn't know how to respond. And like, well, what is agile? And I thought, why are you here? Like, what training have you had? What is this?
So you were confused about their own understanding of agile.
Yes, very much so. Because they seemed to be fighting the change despite saying they were for it. And it bothered me a lot that they stepped on the team because, sometimes, like I said, you have teams that are hard to get to talk, hard to get to open up. And you have to leave that sort of awkward silence sometimes. But this individual, this PO, would always stop the awkward silence and insert their voice. And it was like, I just wanted to be like, stop talking and like mute them on. But yeah, it was difficult to deal with. I do know, so I left that company while that person was still there, but I do know that they had run-ins with some of the agile more senior agile practitioners and management, and they had to set that person straight. So it wasn't just me. I always think when I have an issue with someone that it's just me. It's a personality clash or something. Oh, I just must not like them. But then I usually find out everyone has a problem with that person.
So when you think about this story, and none of us is free from this happening, because even though Agile is very spread around, like many companies are using Agile, even outside product and software development these days, like you yourself exemplify here, right? You're working in the automotive industry. It is still possible that we meet people like this. What do you think Scrum Masters and Agile coaches that may be feeling the same situation you were feeling back then, what could they do in order to, if nothing else, to survive the situation, but hopefully also to improve the situation?
So you can always have one-on-one conversations with the PO. In fact, that's recommended. maybe even longer conversations because you might have more to talk about. But coaching them is still also, I think, a part of being a Scrum Master. Making sure that you do understand their Agile education and their Scrum education, and having, again, that creating that safe space for them to come to you and say, I don't understand this, or I don't like it when it gets quiet in meetings. And so I speak up and, trying to coach them to maybe let there be a little bit of silence so that the developers can speak, because it's important to hear their voice. And so those one-on-one conversations, again, they crop up. I know not everyone likes them. I've met Agile coaches that are like, power to you. I don't want to do that. So it is hard. It is exhausting at times because sometimes you get your own problems and you don't want to hear about everyone else's. But it is important, I think, to help understand where the PO is coming from. One of the things I did was I took the Scrum Alliance PO certification so that I understood their job, instead of just being like, why are they like this? Why are they so mean? And why are they why are they doing this to the team? I took that certification so that I could understand what was going on, get a full picture of what everyone was supposed to be doing, what each role was supposed to represent, so that I could get a better perspective of where they were coming from.
Absolutely. Jumping into their shoes is definitely a good tip for sure. And having those one-on-ones can be a great way to start doing that, while at the same time giving them the opportunity to explain where they're coming from. But of course, there are also great examples of product owners, and that's what we're going to explore next, Eliza. So share with us potentially the best product owner you've ever worked with. How did they work?
So I have to say my current product owner is the best I've ever worked with. He he cares, and I think that is important. He cares about the team, he cares about the product or the project. He wants to do a good job, he wants the team to do a good job. So, I mean, there's times where I have to be like, "Hey man, take a vacation. Like, take a break. You're working too hard. You just got to do your best and then rest, basically. Do your best and rest." Um, Sometimes he does shoulder a bit too much on himself, and I have to say like, "Hey man, it's okay. It's a job. Sometimes things happen, but he is an individual who cares, and I think that's important. I mean, you want to have a product owner who has the capability to say no, because they care about the team and they care about the team's workload, but they also know how to prioritize things because they care about the product or the project, and they understand what's really important and what's just, a nice to have. But the best product owners, they know when to say no and they care about more than themselves.
That is a great summary, right? Like learning to say no because you care about the team, you care about the workload, learning to prioritize because you care about the product and its success, and of course the customers that come with that product. I think that's a great way to summarize it.
Hmm.
Eliza, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the podcast this week. So many stories that you've shared with us. For those that
Oh,
haven't
thank you.
listened to, please go and listen to the other episodes as well. Great insights there. So, but we are closing to the end. Eliza, share with us, where can we find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
So I do have a website. Um, it doesn't really revolve around Scrum. It revolves around my writing. Not sure if that's what you're looking for, but I did just release a book called Painting the Whiskey Blue, about an IT project manager who uses art to cope with his stress and burnout. But my website is my name, basically, selizagregory.com. And that has a list of all my publications. And I have a blog there as well, where I tie in a lot of my reading about teamwork and leadership and time management and productivity with, how I'm doing in my personal life and how I'm applying these things. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter, I guess. So all the same name, S. Eliza Gregory. Uh,
Absolutely. We'll put the link to all of those on the show notes so that people can easily go and find
Awesome.
Eliza's latest book, Painting the Whiskey Blue, right?
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. We'll put the link to the book also on the show notes. Eliza, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and presenting this opportunity. It's been great.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. So join us at scrummasterpodcast.com and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more full week of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.